when you create a mathematical model and when you create a numerical model and implement it to different software, how do you basically know that the results that model is giving you is actually correct? Okay, so and that becomes especially important for critical structures like nuclear structure, because the margin of error in nuclear structure is particularly very low. So you cannot take risk with, like, those kind of errors. So all these models must be verified and validated. Now, what we typically do, especially in structural engineering, civil engineering, when we have to verify and validate something, we just compare one model with another model. So let us say if I have a model, I compare maybe a finite element analysis, or if I have a finite element analysis, I compared with SAP 2000 results. Okay, something like that. But that is actually not the complete verification and validation. There is a whole field of verification and validation. Okay, there's one guide that you can see. It's been proposed by American Society of Mechanical Engineers for verification validation in computational solid mechanics. Okay, and it provides actually guidelines on how to do that. So we need to go through a systematic procedure of verification validation. So all the sources of error are actually minimized or identified or quantified per se, and then validate with respect to experimental data to ensure that our model is producing reasonably accurate result. Now, reasonably accurate is like, subjective thing, and user has to define what one defines as reasonably accurate. For example, if you are doing a seismic response history analysis for regular structure, maybe 5 or 10% error is acceptable. Okay, but let us say for nuclear structure, the margin is low, you would like to be as accurate as possible. Okay, so similarly, those kind of acceptance criteria, results acceptance criteria also need to be defined. Okay, so all these models, basically, we had to go through the whole process of verification and validation. And the process basically starts with left-hand side. Let me show you here. Okay, so what do you see here is actually our original picture of elastomeric bearing. Okay, now our goal is to create a model of elastomeric bearing that can be utilized in the response history analysis of nuclear structure. Okay, so first step is to simplify this system to a physical. So physical simplification is required to a conceptual model. So we know that this can be simplified to a 2 node 12 degree of freedom system like this. Okay, like a cylinder. Okay, then through modeling assumption, I can further simplify this to 2 node connected by 6 springs, and each of the springs actually represent the behavior in the 6th direction. Okay, now we do mathematical modeling after that, so that our behavior in each direction, okay, is represented by the spring, and we utilize these set of equation here. Okay, the equation of dynamics here, and to implement it to any software, as you know, these equations, the differential equations, need to be discretized. Okay, so we do discretization, and then further after discretizing this, we implement to a code. Okay, so it could be OpenCS or like, so we created like user elements like elastomeric X, lead rubber X, or high damping rubber bearing. Okay, so that becomes our computational solution. Okay, now before discretization, let us say sometimes we are able to solve the equation analytically, and if we are able to do that, okay, then and we compare the. So remember, there are always 2 ways to solve any differential equation, right? Either you can do it numerically, you can program it, okay, in MATLAB or any other coding, or if possible, you can try to find out analytical solution, but that is not always the case. But let us say there is analytical solution available. Okay, and it will give me some result. Now I discretize it, implement it to the code, and even for the cases where analytical solution are available, okay, if we consider a very large structure, it is not feasible to actually find out the analytical solution for the whole system. So we discretize it and implement it to the code anyway. Now each step, okay, each step here where I discretize it and then implement it to a code and then find out the computational solution, it introduces an error because discretization itself is an approximate procedure. And then we implement it to the code, maybe due to code there are some bugs or something, again it introduced error. So each of these steps are actually introduce an error. So what we want to ensure that our analytical solution of this differential equation, if it matches with the computational solution, then we say that our model is verified. Okay, so remember, verification is related to the numerical part of the model. We have not considered experimental part here. Okay, so you have a differential equation that you need to solve. Okay, that represents basically the motion of any system. Okay, now you discretize it, you implement it to code, you find out the computational solution, and you compare it with the analytical solution if available. And if that happens, then we call it verification. Okay, and even if it's compare it the whole procedure also gives you an idea of how much is the source of error through each of these process and all those things, and then it allows you to actually quantify the sources of error. Okay, so this is called verification. Now remember, these are all numerical errors. Okay, now once you have verified computational solution, okay, for the same bearing we can also do experimental test and you find out the behavior experimentally. Now experimental data is basically as it is considered the best representation of the real behavior, right? So you can do experiment. Now if you compare the verified computational model with the experimental data, and if it is matches closely, that process is called validation. So validation is related to experimental data, verification is related to the numerical error. Okay, and people use these terms very loosely in our field, that they often mix up what verification, validation, but these have very specific meanings actually. Okay, all right. As I said, the verification is the process of determining that a computational model, and computational model is remembering the final model that you have after you have written a code and you have a program and that you would be using to find out the response. Okay, so if the computational, it is a process of determining that a computational model accurately represents the underlying mathematical model and its solution. Okay, so it has nothing to do with whether the mathematical model itself is correct or not. It just compares the computational model to mathematical model. Okay, and when we compare mathematical model to the experiment, that is the process of validation. So there are a lot of steps actually in verification. The most commonly that we use is basically numerical code verification, where you compare one software to another software. Okay, but actually in reality there are a lot of tests that need to be performed, like symmetry test, order of accuracy test, and all those things. And there could be a lot of sources of error as well, and that need to be identified, including the round of error, iterative convergence error, and discretization errors, all those things. Okay, so we performed all those tests, we identified the error in our model. Okay, and we quantified that what are the sources of error, and we try to minimize in our model. Okay. So this is the simplest example of code to code verification, where I have compared my LS-DYNA result with the Abacus result and OpenSys result. So as you can see, they are matching very closely. Okay, in the horizontal direction as well as in the vertical direction. Okay. So again, this is code to code verification for the seismic loading. All right. And you can see for all the three software, my results actually they match very closely. Okay, and there are other things involved in the basically code to code verification, including are there any other type of phenomena that arises due to numerical solution, like numerical damping in the model, for due to each of the integrator like Newmark or Newmark average, Newmark linear, central difference, or HHT. And we try to remove that. Now, once your model is verified, so free from all the numerical errors and everything, then we compare the verified numerical solution or computational solution with the experimental data to see that the differential equation that we had developed for to represent the mathematical model, whether that itself is accurate or not, or whether there are any error with the modeling assumption. Okay, so it is basically the process of determining the degree to which a model is an accurate representation of the real world, okay, from the perspective of intended use of the model. Okay, so we use verified computational model and compare its result with the experimental data. And we did that in all, like, tension, shear, okay, all direction. Okay, so basically this allowed us to verify and validate our model for a range of different loading situation, directions, okay, and quantify different sources of error. All right, now once we have high fidelity numerical, verified and validated numerical model available with us, we wanted to do response history analysis and quantify the response of a base isolated nuclear structure. Okay, so the objective of response history analysis basically was to estimate the response for the design basis and beyond design basis earthquake, and investigate the effect of extreme loading with respect to each of the characteristics that we have previously described and which are associated with the extreme response of elastomeric bearing, like strength degradation in shear due to heating of lead core, variation in buckling load due to horizontal displacement, cavitation and post-cavitation behavior due to tensile loading, variation in axial stiffness due to horizontal displacement, and variation in shear stiffness due to axial load. Okay, and finally, after doing this response history analysis, okay, and studying the effect of individual extreme behavior, it would allow us to make some recommendation regarding the modeling of base isolated nuclear structure. Okay, so for this study, basically I considered two types of model. The first one is the very simple model that we have already discussed before. It's a single degree of freedom representation of a base isolated nuclear power plant in which the whole superstructure mass is actually lumped at the second node, and thus node 1 is fixed to the ground, which is subjected to 30 sets of ground motions, three-directional ground, tri-directional ground motion, and the behavior between the superstructure and the ground is represented by the behavior of the elastomeric bearing or the lead rubber bearing here. Okay, so this one is the very simple model, and this is especially valid if you want to get the response at the isolation level for the base isolated structure, because for the nuclear structure, the superstructure is very, very rigid. And as we have learned in the dynamics of base isolated structure, if the superstructure is very rigid, then single degree of freedom representation is a very accurate representation for the isolation level response. Okay, now we also wanted to study the effect of three-dimensional modeling of isolated structure. So what we did actually, the superstructure, we modeled it as a lumped system. Okay, and this technique has been described by in one of the reports, EPRI reports, which is Electrical Power Research Institute in US. Okay, so we adopted their model. Okay, and the base mat is actually being represented by the bearings here. So you can see there are multiple bearings in the base mat. Now lumped mass stick model allows us to quantify the individual response of the bearings. Okay, and what happens with the individual bearing and effect of the plant dimension on the response, including the effect of the superstructure. So the rocking effect, torsional effect, all are included in this model. Okay. All right, so as I explained, this is our two-node micro model. Node 1 is fixed, node 2 is the superstructure. The element joining node 1 and node 2 is the lead rubber X. Okay, so we first did the analysis with the two-node micro model, and we subjected to, basically we designed multiple isolation system with different time period, 2 and 3 seconds, and different QD by W ratios. Okay, and we analyze it for 30 sets of ground motion scale to the design basis earthquakes. You can see the target spectra and the scaled spectra here. Okay, and we did the analysis and we found out, like, effect of different properties. Like if you look at heating, the temperature inside a lead core, okay, it can increase as much as up to 250 degrees centigrade here. Okay, and that is actually leads to the fluctuation in the strength of the bearing. That you can see the strength ratio of the bearing. So QD is actually, one is basically initial strength. Okay, and what is plotted here for each ground motion, what is the maximum reduction in the strength. So we can see as we increase the intensity of the earthquake, the strength can reduce as much as the 20% of the original value, and it would lead to increase in the horizontal displacement. Okay, so due to heating effects, you can see here the shear displacement of the isolation system. Okay, it increases significantly. Okay, so basically the dot here, the circular dot here is without any heating effect, the triangular dot here is with heating effect. Okay, and if you look at here, for example, at this point, okay, and these are drawn for different intensity level. For smaller intensities, there is not much difference, like for 100% dB. But as you increase the intensity of the earthquake, you can see there are some differences here. And here between heating, without heating and with heating, you can see there is a significant difference here. Okay, and same is the conclusion for other type of isolation system as well. Okay, so second effect that we wanted to consider is the buckling load effect. We wanted to see that how many of bearings actually buckled and whether our model was able to capture those buckling phenomena or not. So we did analysis with and without buckling. Now, as you know, like, if you don't consider the variable buckling load, none of the models can predict if there is any buckling or not. However, when we use P critical, a variable buckling load, we can see that for T2Q6, one of the ground motion actually predicted buckling. Okay, and for T3Q6, which is a flexible isolation system, okay, 2, 12 and 20 ground motions actually predicted buckling at 150% intensity, 167% intensity, and 200% intensity. Now remember, these buckling phenomena was actually not being captured by the simplified model. So as you can imagine, if you use the simplified model, it would give you the incorrect information about the response of your isolated structure, which is very dangerous. Okay, is that clear? Any doubt up to this point? How advanced models are actually helping us to accurately capture some of the response characteristic that could be missed by the simplified models. Anyone?
Sir, this single degree of freedom model which you showed and earthquake directions in earthquake.
Hello.
Simultaneously.
I lost your voice in between. Can you please repeat your question?
Yes. That single degree of freedom system, and there are 3 sets of ground motion shown, blue color.
Yes.
Yes. This one. Yeah. So these motions were applied simultaneously to the model.
Correct. Simultaneously to the model. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Okay. So as you can,
experimental also and analytical study also, both 3D.
No, so experimental, as you can imagine, I mean, there is no shake table available that can test even a like a scaled down. No, a scaled down model of isolated nuclear power. We can test single bearing. We can test small isolated structure, but base isolated structure we cannot test.
Yes.
So these are all analysis experiment that we did were on single bearing.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So here you can see actually the fluctuation in the buckling load for each ground motion. So what is shown here, like, for each ground motion, what is the maximum reduction in the buckling load. Okay, so actually it is plotted here is actual demand versus capacity. Okay, so you can see that typically for T2 Q6, the demand by capacity is well within 1, right? Only when demand exceeds the capacity, the ratio would exceed 1, and that is the unsafe. That is the unsafe position. Okay, so for T2 Q6, the demand is well within, like, capacity. Same for T3 Q6, although when we go for T3 Q6, actually it has started to increase, so it is started to get close to 1. Okay, but when we go to T2 Q6, so these are for the constant buckling load model. When we do the same thing, compared this to this here, what do you see here? Compared to this one, we are looking at some of the ground motions which actually exceeds the demand, sorry, capacity. So for especially with this case, this exceeds the 1. That means that buckling has happened here. Similarly for this case. Okay, so these could not be captured by the simplified models that you see here. Okay, so we've also wanted to see the tensile load effects and wanted to look at that how many of the ground motions are actually predicting cavitation. Now, we did the analysis with and without cavitation. Now remember, the spectra that I've considered, the hazard that I've considered, it is accompanied with very, very high vertical acceleration, which typically won't be encountered, but we are looking at something like 0.7, 0.8 g of vertical acceleration. So most of the bearings would, but this fact could not be captured if we had used the simplified model. But with the advanced model, you can see that many of the ground motions are actually predicting cavitation. So this would allow us to revisit our design, okay, and look at the system, that whether it is safe or not. Okay. Similarly, we did the similar kind of analysis with the axial stiffness model with and without lateral variation due to lateral load. And basically in the end, we proposed factors. For example, most of the people won't have access to the advanced model, either in terms of modeling capacity or available in some of the software. So what do we suggest? That you go ahead and use the simplified model and just use the factors that are being proposed by us to multiply the simplified model response using those factors and get a preliminary estimate of the response that could be associated with advanced model. Okay, so basically this is what we have proposed. Now that was for 2-node micro model, but as you can imagine, 2-node micro model is a single degree of freedom representation model. Okay, and it could not capture a lot of effects, especially effects due to superstructure. Okay, and to do that, we need to look at the lumped mass stick model, which is a more detailed representation, although now not the exact representation, but it would give us capture some of the characteristics that could not be captured with the 2-node micro model. So basically we consider a rigid base mat here with 100 by 60 plant dimension. We considered 273 bearings which are spaced at 5 by 5 meters. And we did the analysis again with the simplified and the advanced model. And we basically, the response characteristic we obtained was similar to that one, except my advanced model with the stick model were more or less, if we consider simplified model, then if you look at, okay, whether it is the simplified model, whether it is 2-node micro model or whether it is lumped mass model, you can see they are almost superimposed over each other around 1. Okay, so they predict the same response, and which is the same thing that we discussed. These are the isolator level response. So as I said, base isolated structure are very stiff. Okay, and if you consider, the superstructure of a base isolated nuclear structure are very stiff. And if you consider single degree of freedom representation to get the isolation response, that would be appropriate, no issues. However, if you consider the advanced isolator model, and if we increase the intensity of the earthquake, some differences start to crop up at very high excitations. Okay, and so that's why our conclusion is that if your model is undergoing large seismic excitation, then you would need to consider the advanced isolator model along with the lumped mass stick model, which is a more detailed representation. So finally, okay, with respect to each of these properties that you see here, okay, we are suggesting which of the individual characteristic need to be considered in the response. Okay, at what kind of intensities? So heating, it need not to be considered at design basis earthquake, but buckling may need to be considered at design basis earthquake. Cavitation need not to be considered. Axial stiffness dependence need not to be considered. Same for the shear stiffness. So at DBE, you may only need to consider the variable buckling load. However, at 150% DBE, which you can think it of somewhat representing the beyond design basis earthquake or maximum considered earthquake, there you would have to consider all effects except maybe the shear stiffness to get the peak response. Okay, and this is very important, especially if you're doing or analyzing the response of a base isolated structure for extreme earthquakes. Okay, this provides you a guide that which behavior need to be considered. Okay, so with these conclusions, like we finished our seismic excitation studies on base isolated structure, but we also wanted to look at some of the aircraft impact studies. Okay, and as you know that even regular aircraft, regular non-isolated nuclear power plant, even they need to be assessed. Their performance need to be assessed against aircraft impact. This could be mostly malevolent, but it could be accidental in some cases where the nuclear power plant proximity may be close to some aircraft, let us say air base or something like that. Okay, now typically see what happens that this is called the containment shield building. Okay, where inside that you will have the nuclear reactions and everything. Typically it is made strong enough that when you have the aircraft impacting it, it won't be able to breach it. But what it might do due to impact, it can produce a lot of vibrations in the nuclear power plant, and it might lead to some failure of the components of something, and that need to be assessed. Okay, so the base isolated structure we also wanted to look at that whether those effects get amplified due to introduction of base isolation or not. Okay, so what we did actually, okay, we considered a linear superstructure, of course. Okay, and then a linear, we also consider soil domain in this case. Okay, a non-linear isolator model, and these are the following things are actually investigated: the seismic versus aircraft impact for fixed base and the base isolated, and what are the effect of the isolator properties, location of impact, and SSI. Okay, so this is a fully detailed finite element model of a nuclear power plant that you can see. Internally, you can see here, this is the containment internal structure. This is the structure in which the nuclear reactor is situated. And then you can see the outside, it is like, you have cut view of auxiliary shield building, which is called the auxiliary building. And this dome here is actually your concrete containment vessel. Okay, and these are some of the modal time periods that I've shown you here. Okay, so we designed an isolator, okay, for this isolated nuclear power plant. And then we also considered soil domain, soil modeling. The way we have modeled soil is basically using a linear soil domain, because we assume that due to aircraft impacts, okay, the strains in the soil won't be so large that it need to be modeled with non-linear model. And of course, within our expertise and capability, we could only do the linear soil analysis. Okay, and it was modeled in finite element software LS-DYNA, and absorbing boundary conditions were used so that if you have a wave that is being reflected, that is being generated due to impact, okay, it is being absorbed in this perfectly matched layer, which using some sort of impedance function actually reduces the transfer or reflecting wave. Okay. So this is again the same seismic loading that we considered for the previous case. And the way we have applied the aircraft loading is we have considered a Riera load history which he has developed for a different type of aircraft, and we developed it for the Boeing 747 aircraft, which is very common aircraft in US. And we consider a perpendicular impact, which is the worst case scenario, to the containment building at two different locations. Okay, and this is the loading history that was applied. Okay, now if you look at the seismic response first, not the aircraft response, for the fixed base and base isolated, you can see that the response is actually, and this is for the fixed base and base isolated structure, it is significantly reduced. The base isolated response is significantly smaller than the fixed base, and that is expected actually. However, in the vertical direction, it is not reduced significantly. Okay, because vertical direction, we do not provide any kind of isolation. Okay. Similarly, if you look at, sorry, these are not vertical direction, these are X and Y direction. Okay, at different locations. So it is at the center of the basement, it is reduced substantially, containment structure reduced substantially, but as you go above in the structure, okay, the auxiliary and shield building at the third floor, the reduction is not that significant, which is like understable, because as you go higher in the structure, you would have higher mode effects, and the effect of isolation is not realized that as much as you would have at the basement. Similarly, we got similar conclusion in the Y direction as well. Now let us look at the aircraft response. So this one, we looked at the seismic response for the fixed base versus base isolated. Now let us look at the aircraft response. Aircraft response, actually what happened compared to fixed base, if we compare the base isolated, the response is actually not reduced, but it is actually amplified. And you can imagine why. Okay, when you consider the fixed base structure, okay, the whole impact goes from the top of the structure to the ground, and there is no reflection as such. However, if you consider base isolated structure, okay, there is vibration in the structure in both direction. Okay, because the vibration is directly transmitted from the top of the nuclear building to the isolation layer. Okay, and you can see that how it is the impact is being affected. Okay, that all the, whether you consider the center of the basement on the top of the containment, due to aircraft impact, the base isolated structure actually gives you higher response. Okay, then what we did, we considered the seismic T2 versus the impact T2, and we saw that for the impact one, the response is still higher in the higher frequency range, like in this case here. Okay, but with respect to, and I'll show you the next slide, with respect to the fixed base in the lower seismic, lower frequency range, which is mostly responsible for the response of the structure. Okay, it is still smaller than the fixed base seismic. So the base isolated impact is smaller than the fixed base seismic in this range. Okay, and
Sir,
these
can you
conclusions.
please repeat it? I could not get actually what is this seismic T2
Consider,
and
I understand. Consider this. Initially, we had a fixed base structure, nuclear structure, right? And it was undergoing seismic response. Now we saw that base isolated structure reduces the seismic response, but it increases the aircraft response. Is that clear? So
yes,
base
sir.
isolated structure is good if the response is seismic. However, if the response is being considered due to aircraft impact, base isolated does not provide any kind of benefit. In fact, it increases the response in the vertical direction. So is it clear up to that point?
Yes, sir.
Now we want to consider initially that we had fixed base seismic. Okay, and then later base isolated by impact, because what is the critical here? Initially, I had fixed based, and I was considering the seismic response. Later, I have base isolated structure and it is undergoing impact. See, base isolated seismic is not an issue, right? Because base isolated under seismic is always going to reduce the response, correct? But the critical case here is the base isolated impact for which the response is being amplified. So what I'm comparing here, the fixed base seismic versus base isolation impact. And we see that for the lower frequency, the response is being governed by the fixed base seismic up to 10 Hz. But for frequencies higher than 10 Hz, it is actually being governed by the base isolated impact. So accordingly, the isolation and the internal components and system may need to be qualified keeping that in mind. And you know, the range remains similar, whether it is here or whether it is here. You can see that for lower frequencies, the seismic response is being governed for fixed base, but for higher frequencies, the impact response is being governed. Is it clear now? I know it is a little bit confusing, but is it clear now?
Yes, it is clear, sir. But why we are taking SA means we are comparing the spectral acceleration. Why not the forces rather than the acceleration?
Well, because most of these components and equipments, internal components and equipments, they are subjected to floor acceleration, right? Not forces. So the way the internal components and equipments are designed, that you consider the floor acceleration and you apply that floor acceleration to those equipments, and then you find out what are the forces in those equipments. Okay, not the other way.
Okay.
So first you need to get the input acceleration history, the excitation history for the equipments, and that's why we need the spectral acceleration, not the forces. Okay. All right. Now, what we also observed that if we consider aircraft impact, when you have aircraft impact on an base isolated nuclear power plant, there is very little deformation in the isolator if you compare here. It has not even properly yielded. So isolator does not contribute to the total response, okay, of a base isolated structure when it is subjected to aircraft impact. However, compare that to the seismic response. In case of seismic, you would have isolator response as much as up to 350, or here now let us say 320 mm. But during aircraft impact, we had very little isolator response. So as you can see, isolator in terms of the response is not going to play much of a role. Okay. So again, we consider the effect of SSI and non-SSI. We found that considering SSI had a beneficial effect when we considered, okay, the response due to aircraft impact for the base isolated structure. So the response when you consider SSI is actually smaller without SSI. This is as against to fixed base structure where the SSI response is actually higher. Okay. So with this, basically, these are the conclusions of the aircraft impact. You can think in structural spectral demands due to aircraft impact would be greater in base isolated structure than the fixed base structure. Okay. The effect of soil structure interaction is relatively small. The peak floor acceleration in a base isolated NPP due to aircraft impact is smaller than due to its design basis shaking of the corresponding fixed base NPP at frequencies smaller than 10 Hz. Okay. And in structural spectral demands due to aircraft impact, these are insensitive to the second period or the characteristic of the isolation system. Okay. And the response of the isolation system due to impact of the large commercial aircraft is essentially elastic. And damping in the isolator, it does not significantly affect the response of an NPP. Okay, so there are actually a lot of future directions in this study, including soil structure interaction, effect of the vertical component of the ground motion, vertical isolation system, and the supplemental damping system. These are not for basically like, you know, general seismic isolation of nuclear power plants. All these things have potential to be investigated further.